think that's about as long as we should keep everyone who was punctual. So again, for everyone, welcome. Glad you could make it and followed our invitation. So my name is Philip. I do hold the position of Head of Strategy and Business Consulting here at Iconmobile. And we'd love to give you an introduction into our thoughts, our approach towards the change of the home office and sort of the impact of digitalization and current crisis that's happening in the world might have on how we work going into the future. Representing Iconmobile, we're a global digital innovation company with lots of offices around the world, but headquartered here in beautiful Berlin outside. And yeah, hope you guys can hear me all right. If not, just shout out, and otherwise I'll get going. I think everyone should be aware we do live in a world where technology has become an integral part to everyday life, so that's not news. But we do see a couple of interesting trends that are converging and that we should pay attention to. So one of those is the democratization of the smart home. If we talk about IoT and ubiquitous computing, we can sort of reminisce of those buzzwords to like 15 years ago of, when is it going to finally start? And if we now look out into the market, this year is predicted to actually see sales of smart speakers or distribution of smart speakers out in the world overtake tablets and individual computers. So interfaces now have suddenly become so available, so approachable by individual users, and so cheap that we're seeing a huge rollout across the board. And additionally, during the rollout, we're actually not seeing a negative impact. So more than 60% of Europeans are super positive towards augmenting their life with smart connected devices at home. On the other hand, we see one other big trend that's driving this forward, and which is a great shift away from sort of the one-off purchase of products towards users being more engaged with experiences. What do we mean by experiences? If we look at this picture in the back, that's a stunt that Airbnb pulled off at one time, where you could stay in the Louvre for one night and literally book an Airbnb in there. And obviously that had nothing to do with purchasing anything other than actually the experience of being able to be in this great space for one night. And on the other side, we're seeing Samsung Consumer Electronics and their CEO actually also speaking out about how they're not thinking anymore about sort of just putting more gadgets and more stuff into your home and into your hands, but actually thinking about how does that stuff interact with space and how are we creating and driving experiences for end consumers. One other super important aspect that we're seeing in our daily work is actually around personalization. Users have gotten really accustomed to custom experiences, to something being specifically built for a certain segment of the market. Then they've become accustomed to contextualization, so on that services, products, offerings understand, okay, we're being deployed in a certain context. And now we're seeing the next wave, which is actually personalization and hyper-personalization, where we're seeing products adapting to my personal preferences and needs, and also to the situations that we're in. And we're seeing a huge impact on the market, with about 80% of people preferring to engage with a brand that offers personalization and also being willing to pay more for a personalized offering. And then last but not least, as a background trend, we do see new interfaces enabling all kinds of interactions. And I don't want to go through these in detail, happy to chat about them at the end of the webinar. But if we look at that range from sort of the dedicated big graphical interfaces, we're now seeing the emergence of something called the zero interface, or ubiquitous computing, where we literally, as a user, can't distinguish between a dumb and a smart device because the smarts are so embedded that I'm actually not consciously interacting with that interface. So those four aspects are sort of setting the stage for the trend around the smart home and sort of the IoT capturing our everyday life. One element out of that we think has just really not been engaged enough or not been looked at enough is actually the impact of IoT in the office space, and specifically in the home office space. It's been thrown around quite a bit, that term of the new normal. So home office becomes a significant part of our life due to the crisis that's currently ongoing. We still see sort of a ravaging pandemic going on with all the negative fallout, We do have a couple of initiatives around those going at Iconmobile, and this is sort of one of them where we'll try to address that issue in a meaningful way. With or without the crisis, what we're seeing is that we're just accelerating a trend that's been going on already. If you look to employees and to studies done about new work and employees these days, you can notice that virtually everyone is interested in the ability to work from home. We're not talking about constant home office, but employees being interested in the ability to work from home if individual needs arise, or to split their work time between being in an office with colleagues and working from home. Even more interesting, I think we have stats about that 3/4 of American employees would be willing to quit their job for an opportunity of a job that offers home office built-in. So it's considered a huge perk and a benefit because it just integrates better into our current work-life balance, right? We're seeing lots of households with two earners with two full incomes to make ends meet, still raising a family, trying to organize around family life and work, and also just more individual outlooks on what work actually means and the work that I'm doing. So there's a huge uptick there, and then at the same time we're looking at employers, and they, partially due to the crisis, but even before that, had also noticed that something is shifting, up to the point where the companies listed here are seriously considering dropping a lot of their space that they currently offer for employees to sit down and work. Some of them are talking about converting that into more meeting room and conference center spaces where people working from home can come to convene and exchange. And some of them are literally looking to the perspective of actually shedding some of that real estate. Those are sort of the two underlying forces that have only been accelerated through the current COVID-19 pandemic. But it unfortunately has also created and accelerated some of the challenges that come with home office, specifically if your company or the employer wasn't totally set up to support that kind of work beforehand, but also for employees who've just never been challenged with working in a different setting. So let's just visit really quickly the challenges that we've so far identified. Yeah, the easiest one is people are being sent into their homes to work from home, and we just notice office or homes are really not equipped to actually support people to work from there. So they don't have flexible furniture, they don't have fast enough internet connections, they don't have spaces set up that offer some quiet and recluse to actually concentrate and focus on work. Putting a huge strain also, again, on sort of what living situations look like and how do you organize your home. Then I think we've all been faced with that recently. I love the quote, is work is infinite. When you work from home, your office is where you live. It's a nice thing because it enables me to have a quick outing with my family or have a quick lunch and then come right back to work. But it also means that I end up on not being able to unplug and sort of just working every day, every hour at home, because I'm missing the physical differentiation between the workplace and home, and also just the timing aspect. Next, when you talk to people who've been in the home office for a while now, specifically where the social setup hasn't been created to actually foster certain meetups and certain exchange between employees, you actually notice a lot of loneliness and missing social links between people. We're just inherently social people, and with the new home office situation, every social interaction, every encounter has become a meeting invite, a scheduled call, an interruption of your workflow, because everyone participating has no way of knowing if the person they just want to quickly chat up about a question is actually busy with something, or if they're actually lounging in their kitchen having a coffee. In the same realm, but a little less focused on the individual, but rather on the company focus, is actually the aspect of collaboration and communication. Lots of tools have cropped up trying to solve that issue, but at the end of the day, it's still really hard to get everyone in the right mood to actually, in the right setting, to collaborate together on issues, just as we were able to do in the regular office setting. And last but not least, not that we wouldn't have enough distractions in your life already, remote workers clearly struggle with new kinds of distractions. Is that, your undone dishes sitting in the kitchen sink waiting for you to get cleaned up, to no coworker checking in on you while you're browsing Facebook and giving a little bit of a social nudge towards focusing back on your work. It's very interesting. New startups are cropping up that actually pair you up with other remote workers that have nothing to do with you and just let you co-work together. But it just underlines that there clearly is a struggle. Now, if we look at those 5 aspects that we want to tackle, right, we're seeing a subpar setup at home, the possibility of infinite work and missing unplugging, social isolation and the communication breakdown with other coworkers and colleagues, and a new type of distractions trying to pull me away from getting a good dose of concentrated work in. This is where we come in and say, okay, how can we leverage the trends that we just quickly alluded to in the very beginning? The overall trend of, well, this whole home office thing and working remotely isn't going to go away, but rather will remain on a super high level, and bring those together to actually do away with the challenges or tackle some of those challenges we mentioned. We at Iconmobile really believe in sort of a 3-prong approach where we do need to think coming from the user and understanding what context they're in, and then leveraging technology and a business acumen together to sort of drive one holistic solution. If we look at the scenario of a user working at home, how can we support them, right? One is understanding their routines. How are they going about their waking day? Can we support them in subconscious decisions they're making? Can we sort of make them aware of some of the behavior that they're engaging in or not engaging in? And can we support distance communication with other colleagues, sort of like a social object, a social interaction, a social home? Out of those 5 challenges and sort of positive trend, we went ahead and identified 3 different pillars that we think are crucial for a successful home office setup. One of those is around providing a healthy working routine. Then we see the need to foster and engage in collaboration and social contact, and then just drive your individual focus and productivity while you're at home on your own trying to get work done. What do we think? How can we best tackle those and sort of address each one of those 3 different topics? We're a big believer in smarting up and making daily objects smarter, but not in a way that they suddenly get a button, that they suddenly get an interface or anything like that, but rather building in sensing technology that can sense context and intent from you as a user, knowing full well that that is hyper-personal and private information. So we leverage a platform that we've developed internally called Bambutsu that we're using to actually process those contextual information points and just abstract intent from it, and then only communicate that intent externally if we have to. So I want to be really clear here. We're not trying to look into, I don't know, tracking the time that you've spent on your computer typing away and sort of submitting that to anyone, but rather trying to understand, are you actually concentratedly working and do you not want to be interrupted? Or did you just get up from your chair to actually grab a cup of coffee? Just as a quick introduction here. And then third, obviously, we need to look into actions that we can trigger to support the routines that we want to generate. What does that look like in detail? If we take the example of the healthy working routine, and bear with me, so these are thought starters for you guys out there that I think you can latch onto and you can take as input to then generate your own ideas from it. So these are by no means meant as a final product suggestion. So if we look at how do we get people to actually take regular breaks and sort of encourage a healthy work-life balance by supporting those prompts that you usually get literally just by commuting, grabbing a coffee, all those little tiny routines that you're building into your office workday. Can we support those also at home? We're envisioning, for example, something just like a small sensor that's a weight sensor in your chair and you're working from, that literally just senses and triggers that you've just sat down and are present at your desk. Just by the presence, we do know that you've now started working. We don't need you logged into your computer. We don't need you to click on any piece of software that sort of tracks what you're doing, but rather just sensing that you're there, that you're ready to start. Based on that, we can then take other inputs. So there's, again, partners we're looking into that offer solutions to enforce your Pomodoro technique if you're inclined to do that and use that technique, or other productivity solutions that sort of schedule your workflow and make sure that you're taking appropriate breaks along the way. And then we see multiple different ways on how we can actually nudge you to take a break from using social lights that actually just give you a little cue that it's now time to switch from your working day to the relaxing day on the couch, to giving you a little buzz in your chair that it's about time to just get up and literally just get the quote unquote water to just get your feet moving. Another example that I want to quickly hop into, just not eat too much of your time, is collaboration and social interaction. As I alluded to, it's really, really hard in the moment to know and when to disturb someone, specifically if you only have a small ask. Even worse is that you're losing all those non-scheduled, non-planned interaction that happen in the hallway, in the literal water cooler, at the coffee machine. So can we find a situation where we can signal that intent of you taking a break, you getting up, either moving into the kitchen or starting the coffee machine or sitting down in a specific chair in the kitchen, so we can envision a whole slew of potential sensor input that can sense your intent, process that, and then actually just do something as easy as setting your status on Slack or Teams to available for a chat, or announcing in a specific setup conference call that you're currently in a social space, a virtual social space where you'd like to interact with other colleagues, and make you available for a chat while you're having your coffee. And last but not least, as an example, the driver for focus on productivity. At the moment, we do see an uptick in smarts on software where Teams, for example, recognizes that we're now in a call and actually puts me on blocked. But what happens if I have another piece of software open that isn't part of the suite? Or I'm actually concentratedly listening to something else and I have my headphones on. We can take very easy triggers, like you putting on your headphones, just listening on something over there, the way that you're typing or interacting with your computer without knowing what you're actually doing, but rather just analyzing the behavior that you're showing, to then set sort of a cross-system status update to let other people notify other people that you're not currently available. And then we can also extend that back into your actual office, and also bring in social objects into your office that, just like a little light, for example, on the desk that you are, if you're sort of partially home in the home office, partially in the office, that communicates to your colleagues who are there if you're available or if you're working concentratedly. So far, for those three little examples and discussions that we would love to have and sort of build on top of. And clearly, I want to make a reach out here that we at Iconmobile, we're here, we can provide the technology, we can provide the design, we can provide the user perspective and the idea of sort of why would anyone build that. We're clearly interested in finding partners and in finding companies that we can partner with to build some of those products. So integrate that into your own office furniture, to build new kinds of office furniture for people working from home and in the home office, and basically make these ideas and many more new reality. I had planned a little bit of an introduction to Iconmobile. I think you've gotten a sense already on where we are and sort of the way we operate, so I'm going to go really quickly through this, and then would rather open up for questions you guys might have. So as I said, we're an international product innovation firm. We have about 600 employees globally, with really big locations in Europe, in Germany, in the US and then in China and Shanghai. We're split into different subgroups of Icon In-car, Icon Impact, Iconmobile, and Bambutsu that each have a very distinct focus point, with Icon In-car very much focused on new mobility and vehicles, versus Bambutsu is more focused towards being an IoT platform, as I mentioned earlier, and sort of taking local input, private information, and actually processing that into clear intent that we then can couple into other partners and other ecosystems. And overall, Iconmobile is part of WPP and thus has a pretty big outreach into the world. How do we work? We always make sure that we have this little healthy conglomerate of design, business, and engineering / technology when we look at any of the projects that we want to implement, and that very much separates us from many of the other players out there that sort of just try to incorporate some of those elements. For us, it's literally built into our DNA. As an outlook into companies, and more than happy to jump into concrete products that we've actually implemented to give you guys a better sense of what we're capable of. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm much more curious about the questions you might have. So I'm just going to repeat myself here. I would be super excited if any one of you out there feel like you can contribute to these ideas to actually make the home office of the future slightly better, slightly more engaging, do away with many of the challenges that we're currently facing. And yeah, happy to take sort of contacts and comments offline after the presentation. We will share a slide deck with the people who've actually attended. So yeah. Thanks a lot for having you. I'm not gonna keep you that much longer if you don't have any questions, and hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot for being with us today.